Hey, yo, Choice here. Thank you so much for joining me again for another session of Choice Spirit. Here, I want to take a moment and talk about today. There's a shift, there's a change. We may not see it, but there's some changing going on. There's some changes within the body, there's some changes within the mind, there's some changes within the environment. But we don't notice those changes. This is how life is unfolding. We don't necessarily see it happening until we wake up a little bit. It's like watching a flower slowly unfold and blossom. Life is this way. But no, all growth is not necessarily growth. We're not necessarily growing in wisdom and understanding. Though there seems to be growth, or there seems to be aging. But in the aging, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're aging with wisdom and understanding, because there's many reasons why. But one of the things, a couple of things I'm going to bring up is because we're not necessarily grasping the lessons within the experience. A lot of times we get caught up in the experience that we miss the lesson altogether. And then we call forth something like the last situation so it can come again, so we can go through it again. And we may or may not get the full scope of it, the second time around or the third time around. We know this because we attract certain people into our lives, and some of them pull the same nonsense, and we don't know that we're doing it to ourselves. Because we didn't grow, we may have changed, but we didn't necessarily grow. So how do we check ourselves and check our habits? How do we keep ourselves, kind of like know whether or not we're evolving, growing along with the changes? Now, the other thing is, we may make serious changes with ourselves because we think we see what it is. But we really still don't know. We're still not dealing with the true underlying issues, the true understanding of what the whole thing is about. So we call ourselves making the changes for the outside. We're making changes for the outside. And so whatever changes we're making is outside changes. But we're not doing the internal work. I talk about a lot, the internal work. Because the internal is what's truly going to be reflected on the outside. Anything you just do on the outside for that, how do you call that? That superficial stuff. That's going to cause you to attract the same thing because you basically still have the same habits. So those same habits are going to reward you. Same habit-like conditions. Same habit-like people. I know I'm saying it like that, but the same type of people that will give you room and the fortitude, if you will, to do the same old BS and perpetrate the fraud and think and believe that you've grown, you've evolved because you made some changes. So what is this all about? It's about a persona that we're trying to maintain, patch up, put back on. It's a persona, it's a character, it's a mask that we've created. You know how you want, little girls, they want to be a princess, so they dress up as the little princess thing, or little boys want to be macho man. Well, I don't know, these days and times, I don't know, our boys, whatever, and our girls too, so I don't want to do that for those that may be offended. You can't say a princess and it's a girl with, I'm old school, so I'm still trying to get this thing. I respect everybody. I respect everyone and love everyone for what they are, it doesn't matter. But I still, I'm working with this thing. I still see man and woman, a woman pushing out a baby. I'm still for the procreation thing, I'm like, how are we going to survive this thing? But I know I'm way off topic, but I also want you to know that this is a part of an agenda. Remember I talked about perception in one of our other videos? Give out and give me your child for the first 7 years. Let me show them all kinds of material and things. They will literally lose their mind before they get to 7. Actually believe something they had no idea of how it came about, or how it was rooted, or what happened. Parents were sitting up there saying, well, what happened? He was so macho and so, came out. And then all of a sudden there was this flip, there was this change, So how do you know if it's really, if your perception hadn't been tampered with? How do you know if the seeds weren't planted when you were young? How do you know who you be for real without anyone tampering with you? How do you know if that's your true identity, if you're resonating with that because it's something that it's happening within, or if it's a seed that has been planted and nurtured by the constant bombardment of information that kept reminding you that this is what you should be? It's not to take away with what one wishes to call forth as their reality, as their true beingness. A lot of times, things that go on in our lives are as a result of something that has taken place in our lives when we were very young, or during those most impressionable years. And a lot of times we have no idea whatsoever how this happened. The other thing is, we can believe that food has been tampered with, the immunization things that they're giving out has been tampered with, all kinds of things. Now, from the spiritual perspective, I can say we're creating this grand narrative so that we can move through this narrative and come through it knowing who we be. So we can create this thing that everything that they do infects affects us in one way or another. We can believe that with our whole heart and mind, or believe that we're untouchable with our whole heart and mind. And say, hell no. That is not my narrative, right? Now I know I'm off a little bit, but it all connects. So all of these things that they're doing, they say, oh, if you eat too much this, if you feed your children too much soy, it messes with their masculinity. If women eat too much of this, it messes with her femininity, or it messes with the fertility, all nature of things. Oh, if you deal with this injection, it's going to do something with your DNA and all of this. Know this, that the power within you to shut it all down is with you. It's with you. You just have to know it. That can't touch you. Can't touch this. And mean it with all your heart. Right? But many are not there yet to know and knowing and walking in who they truly are and what their true power is, the power within that's gifted to them, that is a part of who they are. So they go along with whatever narrative someone's saying. They say, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. Now in the world that we live in, yeah, we're going to see this happening right before our eyes. And the more people that choose to believe that this is reality, the more momentum that will be gained, and the more that you'll see more and more of this stuff happen. Now, many people are not ready for this because they're saying, shoot, this is real stuff. And I'm dealing with it. And yes, in our mental, yes. In the world that we've created, yes. But we also have power within us to flip this. And it's happening. And it has happened. Because actually everything that we're going through, if I step a little more deep, it's already happened. It's already happened. This is all old news. It's old news. There's some things that are happening that has never unfolded before in this way. Because remember, all perspectives are unique. All perspectives are unique. With that said, I'll go into that another time. With that said, so many are transforming their lives based on information embedded long ago. I remember years ago, there used to be this Soul Train line. And I remember as a young girl, looking at the images of the men dancing in Soul Train, and the men were getting more loose with their dancing. It was a little different from the men that I had growing up with. The dancing began to look a little, their dances looked better than what the women were doing. Real talk. They could get down. But some of them were just looking a bit more sexier than the women. Yeah, they were handsome. They were handsome. But as a child, looking at this, something didn't look right. And then they started with these exploitation movies. You have Superfly and all this, looking like, And I was like, those don't look like my daddy. Those don't look like my uncle. My uncle, my daddy, and them, they were hard, cold men. They didn't move that way. They didn't talk that way. Their voice wasn't so soft. They were men looking out for their households, trying to do the best they can. And now, no, I'm not saying they weren't all over the place. I'm not saying they weren't all over the place. I'm not making excuses for that. You know? And of course there were some other things going on too. But you watched, you saw how it was this thing with the perception. Young people growing up, young children growing up, began to see this is how a man looks. This is how a man dances. This is how a man makes his money. This is how, and watching the exploitation movies. This is how a man should move, especially those whose fathers weren't around, because at that time they were doing everything in their power to split the family up, move the men out of the household. So there was many things, and I will go back into this at another time, that went on to destroy the black family. What they don't understand is that whatever they do to us is like they're going to, whatever goes on with us, they're going to feel it. Whatever is going on with the nucleus, the family, is going to affect them. I'm just talking, y'all. Just hear me out. I'm just going to run this a little bit. It's going to affect them. It's just like I mentioned in one of my other videos. The trees are a part of us. It's a part of our lungs. They allowed us to be here. The trees and the vegetation and all of these things are a part of our anatomy. It's part of who we are. There's an exchange going on with the trees in order for us to breathe, right? For us to have oxygen, right? If you mess around and cut down all the trees, then what? They have yet to realize that if you mess around and try to mess up the black family, they're going to end up wiping themselves out. They're going to end up wiping themselves out, even more so. And I'll go into that in another video. I'll go into that in another video. I know I'm off, and I'm just going to go and talk. Just talk this talk. So if you have a minute, listen to it. If you don't, pause it and get back to it, because I'm just going to talk to you. So hey, look. Everywhere around the world, we were already there. America was like Africa. It was like Egypt. It's like Egypt. In fact, the Egyptians, the people that came together, the Nubians and the Cushites and all that came together from different areas of Africa, built up that area, Egypt, where they all came together and they built that. But as others came in, it began to decline. It began to decline. They were never able to build what our ancestors built. They were never able to do that, to harness the technology that we had. It never went back to that. And it just went down and down and down as soon as they came in and took over, right? We taught them and gave them a language, taught them how to read, write, the mathematics, astrology. They thought that, okay, we got this, we can take over this now, we can run this. But instead they just ran it down. You had people that were living in cities with buildings and all types of things that they destroyed and or took over. And then they told you that the ones that went up into the mountains or in the bush or whatever, that was the civilization there. But that wasn't the civilization that they found. The people that they found there had more than what they had. The Native Americans, which were African descendants of Africa long thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, they had buildings, they had systems, they had laws, they had all kinds of stuff in place. And yeah, a few of them came in different pockets, but the majority of the people that lived in the Americas and South America and many of the islands all along the way were people of African descent. And so everywhere they went into, yeah, they maybe had, what, I don't know, almost 500 years or more in America. And what's happening with America now? It's only 500 years. Do you think maybe that has something to do with how they treated the people? All of us were shipped over. And their DNA tests will deny that any of us have Native American blood. And there's a reason for that, because they don't want us to have claims to that land. And also, because we're mixed and also come from the motherland, of course there's going to be the Native American and that the native of the motherland, because the people on the Native of Native America were mostly African, of African descent. The Mississippi was considered almost like the Nile, and there is pyramids along that way, and there is different things down in the Grand Canyon, and all kinds of stuff where they have secured, they have blocked it off. So here it is. I went way off topic to talk about that because we were all over. And as they came in every country that they've stepped foot in, the country, if you look at it today, is not glorious as it should be. Perhaps they believe they made it better. Perhaps they slowed it down. Who knows? Because the people that did build, the people that did have the technology, the people that were a part of the cities and near the ocean front and trading and stuff, they did away with those people. But the people that were perhaps still in the mountains and in the bush and living a certain type of life were still there, and they were the ones that survived. And so they show you them, and then they want to label them as something. I'm just here to say that when we know something about our history, we know who we be, and see, how things are unfolding. Now, I started talking about growth and got on this topic. But growth doesn't necessarily mean change, and change doesn't necessarily mean growth, but growth needs change. And everything that you see going on today is what's happening. It's the change. It's the change. And everything that these people that we perceive, that we've created in order to have the experience, the persona, the characteristic, the person we be, we created this, we put on this mask, and we created these beings that has given us a run for our money. So that we can indulge in the experience. And I talked about this before. So I know I touched on different things, trying to bring it all back in. But no. Everywhere they went, they changed things. And they see it as growth. And somehow it is growth. In the chaos, there is growth. But we need to open our eyes and see it as it's unfolding. We need to see the unfolding of this. It's so slow and subtle that we can't really see it. We just know that we're catching hell. But the way to get through this is we got to find that love within ourselves. And though we're not feeling any of this stuff, we have to know that there's a change. The change that's going on that is leading to growth that we will know, come to know, when we stop to watch, to observe the unfolding in this without becoming delusional. Delusional. We have to know that the change that's happening will lead to growth when we tap into that love space and allow it to unfold in a certain type of way within our minds, within how we're perceiving this thing, and not allowing our perception to be tampered with in a way where we cannot tune back into that aspect. I know I'm kind of like a little, but you have to know. It's the thing like this. We have to see it. They went all over. They conquered the lands. They took over. Everything that they took over declined. They made some headway. They're very proud of all of the headway. And we've created this. We've co-created this, right? In this experience, we are witnessing changes that give us an opportunity to evolve and grow through when we recognize what it is. All of this is going on is giving us an opportunity to come to know ourselves. All that we've created is an opportunity for us to grow through and evolve through and ascend through as we recognize how this drama, a narrative, a saga is unfolding. We have to shake free from the perceptions, the altering of our perceptions, which is keeping us entrapped in something else that's not allowing us to see the unfolding. All of this noise that they're planting, and you can see it clearly now, all types of stories coming on the media, all kinds of bombardment of certain situations, everything they can think of to disrupt your nervous system, to keep you from getting in tune with your truth, and then being able to see clearly the unfolding. Even if you can't see it, you can feel it, you know it. Intuitively, you know it. And the thing to do is to stay calm. Doesn't mean that you can't go out there and do whatever you're doing, but there's a way in which to do that, which I will talk about in another video. But you have to keep your armor of love on. Your armor of love. And not entrap yourself in this thing that's going on. Yeah. So, yeah, they taint it with your perception. Your perception has you viewing things and seeing things in a certain way, which it doesn't allow you to see the unfolding, the change, so that you can witness it, so that you can grow in the change, from the change. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, Choice here. Thank you so much for joining me again for another session of Choice Spirit. Namaste.